always impressed me about Spencer W. Kimball. It seems to me like he never forgets who you are. He never would forget your name once he met you. I talked to him when I was hired. He was over the Indian Placement Program, and I was hired under the auspices of the Relief Society as an Indian student placement worker. So I never thought I'd grow up to work for the Relief Society, but that's the way it was. So I met him then, maybe twice at conferences that first summer. And then I didn't see him again for probably 2 years. I had met him in Argentina, but I don't know whether he remembered me from there or not. I never mentioned it to him. He may have. But then we were living in Thatcher, and I hadn't seen him or talked to him for at least 2 years.
And Bert was a little baby.
Mm-hmm. Bert was a baby, and President Kimball, or he was Elder Kimball then, had just had throat surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to Safford to dedicate the new Safford Stake Center. And our boss in Family or Relief Society Social Services was actually a woman at first. But Claire Bishop was over the Indian placement workers. Can't remember the name of the woman. She's quite famous. And anyway, Claire Bishop wrote me a letter and said, Spencer W. Kimball's coming to Safford to dedicate the Stake Center there. Since he's the chairman of the Church Indian Committee, he expects to receive a report from you while he's there. And so you get all your stuff together and decide how many foster homes you need. And he'll talk to the priesthood leaders. In fact, he'll set up a meeting to talk to them and try to recruit foster families for you. And I needed a ton of foster families, probably 60 or more, maybe 80. He showed up that night to dedicate the Stake Center in Safford. And I had sent a letter telling him I'd be happy to meet with him. Well, in the meantime, he had set up another meeting in Thatcher to speak, and he had invited all the families in Thatcher to come. He was going to pressure them to accept Indian students, which he did. And so my instructions from my boss, Claire Bishop, was, while he's there in Safford dedicating that Stake Center, when he finishes, don't let him get out of the building without talking to him. And tell him what's going on and what to be prepared for and how many homes to look for when he meets with the meeting he set up the next night. And so I was prepared to talk to him, but the building was filled to overflowing. Remember that night?
And they announced, don't try to talk to President Kimball.
We were sitting in the gymnasium part of the Stake Center.
So way back there.
And we were back quite a ways, and he gave his talk. He had trouble speaking because he had just had throat surgery. It was pretty much a whisper, like, brothers and sisters. You know, that's about how it was. And whoever was accompanying him stood up and said, now, nobody approach President Kimball. When he's finished, we will lead him out, and nobody's to speak to him. He can't afford to talk more than the minimum. And so I thought, well, there goes my instructions from my boss, because I was supposed to approach him and talk to him. And he was starting out, marching up, down from the stand, and then down around the hallway that leads out to the foyer. We were back behind that. And he saw me and Liberta sitting back in there. And he stopped his guys that they were holding his arms and everything. He stopped them and said, I want to talk to somebody. And he walked back to where I was and gave me a big hug. And he said, Brother Crockett, how are you doing? With a raspy voice. And I said, fine. And he said, what do you want me to tell those people tomorrow night in Thatcher? And I said, well, I need so many homes. And he said, I'll get them for you. And he said, you're going to be my companion speaker. That's the first I'd heard of that. But I had to talk for about 10 minutes before President Kimball.
You know, Jesse, do you remember Jesse M. Smith?
Yes, he married us.
No, Jesse. No, not Jesse M. Smith. Yeah, Jesse.
The one that was Temple
No,
president?
she was married to, as a woman, she was married to Joseph Fielding Smith.
Oh no, I don't know that one.
She had a really good soprano voice.
Yeah, I remember her.
You remember her?
Yeah, she sang with the choir.
Yeah,
Did solos all the time.
yeah. She had a really good
Really
soprano voice.
beautiful
Yeah.
contralto.
Yeah, and they came to back up. I was in Japan in the Marine Corps, and they came on a tour of Japan, and we had a meeting, a conference of all the servicemen, and I went to that meeting, and afterwards I met the two of them. And then some 4 or 5 years later, I'm on my mission down in Guatemala, and they came down there. And the missionaries are all out waiting to shake their hands as they come into the mission home, And she comes up to me and she says, I know you, I've seen you, I've met you before. I said, yes, you have. And she says, don't tell me. She says, that'll come to me in a minute. She walked about 2 more elders down, shaking their hands. And then she comes back to me and she says, Japan, 1955.
Wow.
She remembers, of all the hundreds of people, she, maybe even more than that she had met in the meantime, she remembered me and where she knew me from and what year it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
She was an amazing lady.
I think I remember hearing her sing When the Moon Comes Over the Mountain.
Oh?
You remember that song?
Yeah. Yeah.
President Kimball came to rededicate the Mesa Temple. I can't remember the year. Bert and Clarissa, and we probably had David.
He
Maybe not.
spoke at the little chapel on Broadway
Yeah.
and I remember shaking his hand.
Yeah. We were instructed to take our kids to the little Ninth
That little
Ward
chapel and drop 'em
chapel
off.
on Broadway and drop them off, and they had to hold primary for them or some kind of service while we were at the temple dedication at the Tri-State Center.
And he was walking in.
Yeah, Liberta and I we had just gotten out of the car and had you three little kids. And we were starting to lead you, and he drove right up next to us and got out with his driver or whoever it was. And he said, "Oh, LaRue, Liberta, how are you doing?" He knew our names.
Who was this?
Spencer
Oh,
Kimball.
Spencer Dumacada.
Well, he's from Stafford, and
Yeah.
he knew my parents really well.
But
Yeah.
how could he remember us after the thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of people?
Yeah.
He was the state president there, and my dad was.
I was amazed that he could call us by our first names.
While your dad was bishop, he was the state
Yeah.
president.
Oh, really?
And my dad was bishop for like 20 years in Pima.
Yeah, 20 years? Yeah. They used to do that. They used to put them in as
Yeah, they
bishop
just
and
leave
leave
him
them.
there.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. Yeah, the old bishop, when I was growing up, we must have had him for 20 years. Seems like it anyhow.
I'm sure glad they discontinued that practice when I was a bishop.
Yeah. Yeah.
After 5 years, if they'd have told me I had 15 more years to go. Oh. We had a huge ward, 800 members.
Wow.
Half of them were transient.
Yeah, we had the apartment complex on Shouse. Lots of transient members moving in and out of that.
But whenever he'd come to Thatcher, to the state conferences there, they'd always have lunch at my Uncle Jack's house, and we would all go there because Daddy was the first counselor. Uncle Jack was the president, and we would eat lunch with him. I've eaten lunch with him 3 or 4 times.
I could see him remembering your name, but I was sure shocked he knew me.
Well, you're the Indian placement guy, that's why he knew you.
Yeah, I guess they keep track of their employees.
I never knew that. Never saw Jim Story until I went to BYU, I guess. No, wait, that's not right. That's not right.
Well, wasn't it Jesse and Smith, the man that married you and I?
Yeah, he was the state president here.
Yeah.
He's the one that sent me on my mission. Well, he was the stake president. I had to be interviewed by the bishop and Jesse M. Smith, who was the stake president in Snowflake. And then I had to go to Phoenix and interview by Delbert Stapley. Delbert Stapley was a Marine during World War I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to his office.
Sure, if you can stay here till tomorrow morning, Jeff always calls us Monday morning. We always talk to him
That would be nice.
on my iPad. We can see him in person.
He'll be here in 2 months.
Yeah, sadly, I think we need to go. Jen has she's doing some brain training for a couple people.
Is it the same stuff Fred's wife does?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about
She's got an appointment with Barbara Wolf, I know, from our ward.
He never tells us much about his work, but I imagine it's pretty high level because he knows everything that's going on.
He did tell us something I'm not sure he was supposed to disclose. Last time he called, he said, "We're going to have a special visitor here soon." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Trump."
Wow.
I said, "When's he coming?" And he said, "I already told you more than I should have."
Maybe I should get that